What does real-world success in business actually look like? Welcome to Bearcats Mean Business, the official podcast of the University of Cincinnati's Carl H. Lindner College of Business, where inspiring career stories, honest lessons, and fresh business perspectives from the people building impact in the real world come together. Tune in for inspiration, practical business insights, and forward-looking thought leadership on how ambition turns into action. And now, for today's episode.
Doug Conant, it's such a pleasure to have you here at Lindner. I appreciate you on many levels, and now today I'm thrilled to be able to share some of your learnings and inspiration with others, so thank you again for being here.
Oh, I feel blessed to be here on a beautiful day in the spring.
Beautiful
Can't
day.
beat it.
Especially on a campus.
Yeah.
It just all
yeah.
comes alive. It's so vibrant. I'd love to dive into some of your CEO and chairman lessons, because you've certainly had quite a few. I think the challenge is to winnow it down, and I'd love you to share, one or more of your most vital or likely toughest leadership decisions. Because as you and I have talked about before, from balancing responsibilities to shareholders versus employees, or money and mission, and in your turnarounds of Nabisco, Campbell Soup as Avon chairman, give us something that gives us a sense of, what is a really tough leadership decision, and how do you work through it?
In 25 words or less.
There you go.
Be a piece
there
of cake.
Go. Easy.
It's funny. Things become more clear as you start to step away from fighting through the day-to-day. And it's funny because I'm very reflective these days. Mm-hmm. On March 15th of this year, I celebrated my golden anniversary of 50 years as a corporate leader. On March 15th, 1976, I started my career in brand management at General Mills right after getting my MBA from the Kellogg School. It wasn't even called the Kellogg School then. It was the Graduate School of Management Science at Northwestern. And so I've had 52 weeks a year of navigating the choppy seas of the corporate world. Mm-hmm. 52 years worth of challenges every day, and having what are we going to do on Monday conversations. And I've had the privilege of working with now 52 people who have worked for me who have gone on to be CEOs. So
that's extraordinary.
The experience has been an amazing ride. Considering I started out at the very bottom, I've had 28 bosses in my career. And they had 28 bosses, so basically I had 56 bosses. And I had about 20 roles in my first 25 years, and 2 roles basically my last 2 or 3, my last 25. Mm-hmm. But the lessons I'm going to share with you today, they apply to when I started, when I was in the middle of the journey, and when I ended the journey. So these will come from a former chairman CEO, but they're life lessons that apply to every step along the way. And there are 2 of them. One is that it's all about people. Mm-hmm. You have to bring a people-first mentality to the work. There's a quote, which I won't get right, from Rabbi Hillel the Elder, before Christ, who basically said, treat others as you would like to be treated, and all the rest is just rhetoric. Everything else, and he said that about the Torah. Everything else in the Torah is just rhetoric. You treat people properly, and everything else is just rhetoric. And I found over 50 years in all of my roles with all of my bosses that it's true in the corporate world and it's true in life. In the fullness of time, if you want to have enduring impact with people, you need to treat them as you would want to be treated. You need to honor them and respect them. You can win in the short term if you want to be a bully. We've seen evidence of that in in the political world these days. But there's no evidence in all of human history that that is a sustainable proposition. And there's certainly no evidence in the corporate world. My 50 years is 20% of the in the corporate world is 20% of the history of the country. It's about 50% of the history of the corporate world as we migrated from an agrarian society to an industrial society. And through it all, I think people first is the one thing that resonates with me, the lesson I've learned, and it's never let me down, not as an assistant product manager, a marketing director, a vice president in sales and strategy and marketing, a general manager. It's never let me down. So that's the first piece. The second piece, and it's pretty straightforward, is that leading is hard, and it's not just one thing, but if I had to boil it down to one thing in terms of how you lead, and it builds off this people-first mentality, it's that you have to be tough-minded on standards and kind-hearted with people. Not one or the other, both. You have to bring an abundance mentality to the work. Because look, the reality is, if you're not getting the job done as expected, you won't have the job very long. And so, as a CEO, you have maybe 3 years. The first year, it's the other guy's fault. The second year, it's our fault, we're learning. The third year, you own it. And so you've got to be performing in a way that promises to your bosses and whoever you're reporting to, your shareholders, that promises that it's going to be better tomorrow than it is today. And then you got to demonstrate that time and again. And so you've got to be very performance oriented, but I've also learned that, going back to the people first mentality, if you don't put people first there, when you're not in the room, they won't necessarily champion the agenda that you've created with them. And so they have to champion it because they want it. And the way they do that is the way you bring them into the effort in a fulsome way is by being kind. You know, I have a favorite saying, Conan O'Brien, who just hosted the awards ceremony, he has a great saying that I wrote a piece about 10 years ago. And his saying is, work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. And you know what? In my career, I've worked hard. I've been kind all along the way. I've been tough-minded on standards of performance, and amazing things have happened. Not just for me, but for all the people that have been on the journey with. Not perfect, but it's largely worked nicely.
Oh, I mean, you and I have talked about that one before. You know, I study paradox and competing demands, and I remember a conversation with you probably a year ago where I talked about one of the challenges I'm seeing increasingly with executives and rising leaders is between tough and kind. And you gave me the tough-minded, kind-hearted, and examples of that. And I want you to know it stuck with me deeply. I think it's a very powerful lesson. You know, another... maybe not so much a lesson, but kind of a motto that I've heard you say that I'd love you to talk a little bit more about is something I've seen from the Conant Leadership website to other places is your line, to win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace. I'd love to hear how and when did you come to this conclusion, and if there's more that we should understand about that motto.
Well, we can unpack it a little bit, but it grows out of my belief and my experience and my study. It's not just my experience I'm talking about. I've been a student of leadership for 50 years, too.
You really have.
And I've taught it. I was chair of the Kellogg Executive Leadership Institute for 5 years. So I'm deeply steeped in this leadership conversation, both as a practitioner and as a student. In my experience, it grows out of, and all the studies indicate this, that you have to, if you want people to champion your agenda, they have to genuinely believe that you're appreciating their agenda. It just won't work any other way. So if you're not paying attention to their agenda, you can't count on them as an enterprise to be champion yours. So you got to put first things first. And you just can't win. I just have seen no evidence that you can win in the marketplace in an enduring way unless you've got the enterprise with you and working the same process that you are. And as long as I found that as long as I focused on creating the right environment for my team and I challenged them to perform at a certain level, we worked on that, and then I supported them, we did well. And the only times when I was short-sighted and had to deal with an emergency and didn't make the best decision, we struggled. And I put that more on me than I do on them. Because if I had created the right conditions for it, they would have found a way through. But I had to deal with something that demanded an expedient reaction. I didn't manage it probably as well as I could have. And so I think that's the key. You got to win in the market, in the workplace before you can ever expect to win in the marketplace. Absolutely. I think it's even more true now than when I was starting, because now you're more dependent on those frontline workers to do the job, because in the last 2 decades, the organization hierarchies have collapsed, and managers are now managing 3 times as many people.
Right.
And also the jobs have changed. It used to be when I started, if I didn't know what to do, I would go ask my boss, how do I do this? They can't go ask their boss now. They get sent to the help desk or ask a coworker. Well, then what are you doing, boss? And so if you want them to be more autonomous, which they have to be, you
much more self-managed.
You really better be creating a culture where they think you've got their back. Yeah. They shouldn't only think it, they should know it.
Right.
And there should be evidence of it. So it's even more important now than it was before, because even if I wanted to do your job, I couldn't do it for you. So I'm counting on you. And if I'm that dependent on you, I need to recognize that and recognize that I need to be helpful to you if you are to be fully helpful to the enterprise.
I think that's powerful learning. You and I are both disciples in varied ways of Warren Bennis, and one of my favorite, and I have a lot of favorites, I suppose, but of his insights is about the power of crucible moments, that you really find yourself, particularly as a leader, being honed in the hardest times. And one that has stuck out in conversations I've had with you, you certainly write about it in your book, The Blueprint, is that you're quite public about having been fired from a director-level role early in your career. I'd love you to share a little bit about what you learned from that very clear crucible moment.
Well, you're going to make me relive that again. Once I wrote about it, it seems to come up a lot. And when it happened, when I lost my job back in the early 1980s, and I had moved to Boston from my home, from where I had started my career in Minneapolis, still working for General Mills, the first company I worked for, and and I was in the Parker Brothers Toy and Game Company, which was a blast. I was director of marketing for toys and games. But they went through some difficult times. That industry tends to grow and shrink based on the latest hit. And we were drifting into the electronic game age out of the traditional board game age. So we were scrambling to make it all work. Ultimately, they downsized and they decided they didn't need me. And they let me go. I went into work one day. The assistant said, so-and-so would like to see you in his office on the executive floor. I went up to the executive floor. He couldn't look at me. He said, Doug, your position's been eliminated. You need to be out of here by noon. Ouch. And so-and-so will escort you down. And there wasn't even I've worked for the company for 10 years. It wasn't even a handshake. It was so awkward for him. Oh. I mean, I understand that. I've had to let people go too. Yeah. But there's a better way. Mm-hmm. But I understood it, and I went home. But I was furious, and I went home to my wife, our 2 small children, and my 1 very large mortgage, feeling every bit the victim there. And I ended up working with an outplacement counselor who really helped me sort through how to deal with a crucible moment. And that was a crucible moment. I was out of work for nearly a year. Basically, he basically said, Doug, if you're really stuck, the way to get out of this is to go in and to be reflective on the things, what matters most to you. There's this quote by a former beatnik, Ambrose Redmoon, who passed away in 1996. And he basically talked about courage as it's easy to, in order to manifest courage, in order to manifest courage, it's not about, there has to be something more important that motivates you. And so he was basically saying, Doug, what's important to you? Yeah. You're afraid, you're out of work. What's important? And what matters most to you, which goes back to some Stephen Covey language that you and I have talked about in the past, and Warren Bennett's language. And so what I learned in that process was I had to get anchored on what mattered most to me, because I wasn't showing much courage. I was on my heels. I was worried about supporting my family, like anybody. But I wasn't coming across, and I'm an introvert, I wasn't coming across as somebody you just want to jump through hoops to hire. Right. And I was sort of shell-shocked. And he basically made me handwrite my life story on 50 pages, both sides, and he wanted handwritten. He thought there was more to it than that, and actually there was. And I said, I don't have time to write all this stuff. I got to get a job. He said, on the other hand, this is the perfect time because you don't have a job. Let's do the work. I want it in 2 weeks. So I spent 2 weeks writing basically my life story. And we talked about it afterwards. He said, well, what did you learn? I said, well, I come from an amazing family. History, my forefathers pioneered this country. They dealt with a lot more challenging things than I have in front of me, and they found their way through. I come from pretty hardy stock. I need to lift my game. I need to be more intentional about what I'm doing. I need to take charge of this thing. And so I did, and I started acting with purpose. I started acting more intentionally. I started to manifest the courage of my convictions, which was a big deal because I wasn't showing courage before, but that was because I didn't know my convictions. It's hard to show the courage of your convictions if you don't know what your convictions are. Yeah. And so I learned from that experience that I needed to bring courage to the work, and I couldn't be courageous until I was incredibly well anchored in who I was and what I wanted to do, knowing that it might change. But at least I needed to be really well grounded. Yeah. And that was the big lesson learned there, and I think that's true for all of us today. I mean, gosh, it's only gotten more chaotic. For sure. In the workplace and in the country, in the culture. And the more things swirl around you, the more well anchored you need to be in order to deal with it all. That's right. And the one thing you can't do is succumb to that. In order to get out of this, you've got to go in.
Well, I want to stress that you and I've talked as well, that your book, where you really write more about this power of reflection and how to put it into practice, your book called The Blueprint, has some wonderful methods of reflection. And I took it seriously myself and used your approach over, I guess it was a 4-day period. When was it, Doug? A couple years ago, when my family was away and I just had quiet for 4 days. And it is powerful to really go in that way. And I know it might, you make me laugh when you say, you're going to make me relive that horrible experience again, being fired. But I also think it's incredibly important, especially when we have opportunities to talk, when I have, and you have opportunities to talk to rising leaders or students as they're starting. They have to understand that you were them once upon a time. You don't just come out fully
they're far
formed.
ahead of where I was. I mean, I was pretty pathetic for a whole host of reasons. But, I have learned that if you get anchored on, Stephen Covey used to say, Doug, you just got to remember, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah. And he would say, what's your main thing? Yeah. And it sounds so trite.
Oh,
but
it's so hard to boil it down to.
We have these life experiences that are teaching us what the main thing is. But in my case, I was just putting all those in the parking lot, and I was moving on with my life, and I wasn't really learning from them. I was just dealing with the new boss, the new situation, trying to react and navigate. And what I learned is the main thing was in my parking lot. I just needed to go in there and explore it, just like you needed to do for those 4 days.
Did.
And it's amazing because we know what impactful leadership looks like. We've experienced it with people. Our parents, our grandparents, our aunt, uncle, teacher, professor, very rarely a boss, sadly. And so we know what good leadership looks like. We just need to channel that experience into the way we show up for people in a way that's aligned with the person we want to be, the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, I could not agree more. One of the practices, I want to dive into something quite specific, but it's such a good example of what you're talking about, really putting it into action, revolves around really the power of gratitude. Because you became well known during your period at Campbell's, which was quite a turnaround, for writing over 30,000 thank you notes. I have a stack of thank you notes on my desk right now at the moment, and when every time I have the opportunity to write them, I think of you in that moment. Why did this recognition, these thank yous like this, become so important to you? And how has that practice developed?
Well, this is all connected.
Yeah, it is. Their themes are quite clear.
Keep people first, winning in the workplace if you want to win in the marketplace in an enduring way. And having an abundance mentality that talks about being tough-minded on standards and kind-hearted with people. What I have found in 50 years of doing this stuff is that organizations, I don't care if they're academic, nonprofit, government, or commercial enterprises, organizations get really good at critical thinking. We find what's wrong, and then we commit to fixing all the broken parts. And that becomes the mindset of the enterprise if you're not careful. We look for what's wrong. I can find a busted number on a spreadsheet. Forget the fact that 87 numbers look right. I'll find the broken one and say, what are we doing with this one? And I've discovered that every organization I've been part of, I've been at Nabisco and Campbell, they were two of the most broken organizations in the food industry space in the last century of the large food companies, and for different reasons. But even then, 8 out of 10 things were being done right, but nobody was talking about them. And even Gallup survey, they're the preeminent employee engagement survey people, headquartered in Washington, D.C. They have their famous Q12 survey. And of the 12 questions that really give good indication of an employee who's fully engaged in the work, they boiled it down from hundreds of questions, thousands to hundreds to 12. One of the 12 questions is, I've received praise from my boss once this week. Just once, not a million times. Right. And all these people are doing at least one thing right, I guarantee it. And I learned that after I started doing this, but I had this situation where we were going to have to make some massive changes to the enterprise. And I realized, go back to Stephen Covey, his model helps explain this, that if you're going to inevitably you have to make tough choices. But his model of the emotional bank account for an organization is mission critical here. You have to have so much equity with the population that if you make a withdrawal and you make a tough decision, you're still in the black. Yeah. Most organizations that are under pressure, go way in the red, and then they try and rebuild it. Witness what's happening with the federal government employees right now. We're so far in the red, it's going to take decades to rebuild that infrastructure in a way that will serve the American people. That's another conversation. But I realized, well, what can I do? You know, because part of this is you can talk about this all you want, but you sort of have to live into it. You have to pull a Gandhi. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. And I realized, well, I'm commuting 2.5 hours to work from my home in New Jersey, and I got a 2.5-hour drive home. I have somebody that drives me, thank God. But on the way home, my assistant would pull all the information that had gone on in the company off our one portal. I'm old, so we had one portal. And it all got printed out for me. I didn't, and I would read it all the way home, and I would pull things out of all the successes. I was overwhelmed at how much good stuff was going on. I knew all the bad stuff. And I pulled out 20 or 30 of these, and then on the way into work the next day, I would handwrite thank you notes to 10 to 20, sometimes 30 people, and just saying thanks for the good work. I was very careful to reinforce the standards. Thanks for hitting your target on time, above budget, or thanks for helping us launch this program with this customer in a way that helps us put our best foot forward. It was all very focused on supporting the strategy and celebrating their contribution. And I would do 10 to 20 a day. And then when I retired, this is when this started to become known. Not until I retired in 2010, 2011. Forbes or Fortune, I don't know which, was interviewing me. And they said, we hear you write a lot of notes. And I said, I do. 10 to 20 a day, every day, 6 days a week for over a decade. And they said, well, how many is that? I don't know. And so we got out my desk calculator in my drawer, and we did the math. And the math was that I had written at least 30,000 notes to our employees. I'd written other notes. This is all about the entire value creation process. So I'd written notes to customers. I'd written notes to suppliers, consumers. I wrote a lot of notes, but I was in the car a lot, so I could do it. And I got good at handwriting in the car. It's a bumpy ride sometimes, but I was very I was very good at it. But we figured out I'd written 30,000 notes, and we only had 25,000 employees. So everywhere in the world, people had a handwritten note from me posted in their cubicle saying, thanks for the good work. You hit the target, you supported the strategy, and you're helping us move our company forward. And so, and we were in 38 countries. We were marketed in 125 countries. Wherever you would go, even an accounting center or a plant, they would have all these notes posted on the bulletin board. And what became interesting was, and this is why you have to model the behavior, the people that worked directly for me started coming to me. All of our people are getting notes from you. Are you expecting us to write notes? And I said, no, I really didn't think that, but I didn't think this fully through. I do think we have to show up for them and celebrate what's working, but it has to be authentic, going back to the Warren Bennis importance he placed on being authentic. I said, you need to find a way to authentically, in a way that works for you, celebrate what's working while we are tearing apart what's not working. Because we got to tear apart what's not working. But 80% of this is working, and we got to keep that going. And so all of a sudden, some people who really didn't want to write notes were wandering around. They managed by wandering around. They were intercepting people, and they became known for managing by wandering around. Some others who didn't want to wander around started having special time in their staff meetings and in their group meetings to celebrate contributions of significance. They all found their way to do it. But I gotta believe, if I hadn't shown up that way and hadn't started, these notes weren't popping up everywhere, it wouldn't have happened. I don't see any, in fact, I don't know of any other company that's a Fortune 500 company that was going that deep on the gratitude piece. And it worked. They were with us.
Yeah. And you were doing hard things at the time.
Oh,
so
well,
you were building.
As we've talked before, I'm pretty sure, we had to let go. In the first 3 years, we let go 300 of our 350 top leaders. 300 out of 350, 6 out of 7.
Oh my goodness.
We gave them 3 years to get it right. We said, here's what we want to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and we're going to lead by honoring and respecting our workforce, and we're going to audit this every year with Gallup survey. And the first year, I'm not even going to look at the results. That's going to be your baseline. The next 2 years, we're going to be looking at it, and you got to be making progress at getting the employees engaged in the work and earning their respect. And if this isn't what you want to do, you should choose to go somewhere else. And so probably of the 300 that left, probably 150 to 200 left on their own over the 3 years, but we let go 100 to 150. We said, if we can find you a role where you're not a manager, but you're an individual contributor, that would be great. We'll try and find you a home, and we'll help you find another job, but we got to get this right. Going back to an earlier conversation that we just had, I had 3 years, my perspective. By year 3, we had to be hitting stride, and that means you got to start acting in year 1.
But I love that you had that time horizon.
Yeah, and so they had time to process it.
Absolutely.
And most of them didn't think I meant it, and most of them didn't think that I would last that long. So, but ultimately, we promoted 150 people who had the eye of the tiger inside, and we had kept 50, so we ended up having to hire about 150 from outside, all over the God's green earth. We started recruiting the young Turks, the people from the best consumer products companies who were stifled. They were stuck in bureaucracy, and they were ready to do more, but they couldn't break. They had to wait 5 years. And I was one of those at one point in time. And we found, we got the right talent. And talent is all about character, competence, and chemistry, your ability to work with teams. If we found the right people, we could change the world, and we did.
You really did. It's remarkable. Doug, let's talk a little bit about the way you and I have been working together. I mean, we came to know each other through the Warren Bennis Leadership Institute. You're not an alum. I don't think you've spent a lot of time in Cincinnati. Well, you've probably spent some, but could you talk a little bit about what drew you to partner with the Warren Bennis Leadership Institute? And because I think it gives us a little bit more into your own values, but also your relationship with Warren.
Yeah, there are two people that had a profound influence on my leadership. There were a lot of people, but two people who were probably the top two that had a profound influence on my leadership life, and they were two men. There weren't really women role models then in the corporate world, certainly, and or on the fringe of the corporate world, or even in academics, women talking about leadership to men. So I was drawn to two people, and Stephen Covey and Warren Bennis.
Impressive both.
They were to me, and
Still are to me.
And I'm going to talk briefly about Stephen, but I'll get to Warren very quickly. I was actually still working at Parker Brothers. This is the 80s. And my wife and I were on taking a trip after the birth of our second son. He was probably 2. We hadn't been away, just the two of us, forever. And we were going down to the World Monopoly Championships at the Breakers Hotel. I was still in charge of marketing. And I bought a book. I would always buy a hardcover book at the airport and read it on my trip. That was something I did. Now you just have a Kindle or whatever. But and I bought this book, and we were sitting in first class, which was like a real treat, and they were serving mimosas or whatever, Bloody Marys, and my wife had one, and she said, well, aren't you going to get one? I said, no, this book looks interesting. I'm going to read it. I started reading it. I read it all the way down there. I totally ignored her, and maybe not totally, but I was not fully present with her, and this is our big time apart, away. But I was so absorbed by this book, and then we got to the Breakers Hotel. They took us up to our room. They opened the doors. It was facing the ocean, the waves crashing on the rocks, and it was fantastic. And we weren't used to this kind of treatment. This was like a second honeymoon, I guess. And I sat down and in the living area and started trying to finish my chapter before I did anything else. And she said, what is wrong with you, you know? This is our first time. What's going on? And I said, I can't help it. This guy is brilliant. And she said, well, why do you think he's so brilliant? I said, because he thinks just like I do. And what Stephen Covey had done and what Warren did for me was they gave words to what I thought and how I felt. They helped me find what Bill George would call true north. They were talking my language. What was that movie with Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise? He's like an agent. And anyway, at one point, he comes to win her heart again, and she says, you had me at hello. And Stephen and Warren had me that way. Nobody else did. Nobody else like that. And then, so I was a mentee of Stephen's for years. Stephen M.R., his son, is one of my good friends. His daughter, who finished his last book, Cynthia, the whole family's a good friend. They're good friends. But then I was getting into writing. I was still a CEO, and I was friends with Bill George, and he recommended I talk to Warren about, I said, I have a book in mind. I want to get it published. And he said, you ought to reach out to Warren. And so I reached out to Warren. He was living in Santa Monica at the time. I said, I'd like to meet you. And man, we just hit it off. I flew out to Santa Monica. There was a hotel where we would have breakfast called the Viceroy Hotel, and we would just sit and talk. And he always had a graduate assistant with him because at this stage he was older, he needed a driver. So I only knew him the last maybe 8 years of his life. But I felt just the same way I felt about Stephen. I felt like he was a kindred spirit, and he had seen so much more than I had. I could learn a lot from him. And so we became friends. When he passed, I ended up writing a little bit about him that got pretty good traction in social media. And my first book was published under his group, in his portfolio of books with the Wiley Publishing Company. And he wrote a little forward to it. And we stayed good friends until the very end. And what was fun for me is I had read all his material before I met him. I'm a voracious student of leadership, and I had read, some of the. I had read virtually all of his work, and the one that I liked the best, because I read it at the right time, is not the one anybody talks about.
Which one?
But I was at Nabisco at the time dealing with KKR in a leveraged buyout situation, and the book he wrote that really hit me hardest was a book titled Leading People's Like Herding Cats. And I was herding a lot of cats, and I didn't have any idea how I was going to get through this. And he got it. And so that was the one book that I remember having the greatest impact on me, although I've read all of them, and I've done his workbook, and this was before I met him. So by the time I met him, I was sort of starstruck. But then we just became good friends. That's so nice. It's just like a lot of things, it's a shame we couldn't have had more time together. It was, I think we both appreciate it. And I love working with you and getting to know his daughter, Kate Bennis. I see so much of him in her. And so that's what drew me to the Warren Bennis Leadership Institute. I think it's vital because I think the answer is we need more people like Warren. And in today's world, as the world gets more stress, you know, we know all the research says it's a, what do they call it now, a Bonnie world? It used to be a VUCA world.
Right,
Warren created,
was,
in 1986, Warren and Bert Nanas created the VUCA concept, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. But every generation seems to need a new word so they can, you know, well, we have our own word. And the current word that is Bonnie, B-A-N-I, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible.
Ooh, I have not heard that.
And it must be true, it's in Google. And no, when you study it, it actually makes sense. But all the research says of those four, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible, the thing that's most pronounced now is anxiety. People are so anxious with the world outside, they're getting paralyzed. And this anxiety is being perpetrated in a way that is not focused on winning in the workplace. It's not focused on being kind-hearted. And as that gets into short supply, I think the law of economics says as it gets into short supply, it's going to be more in demand, and it's going to become more valuable. And you know, my friends think I'm crazy, but I think if you want to skate to where the puck's going, skate to a place that's talking kind-hearted. Tough on standards, have to be.
Yeah, both. No,
both.
It's such a beautiful paradox.
But
yes, both.
But you skate to where the puck's going, and it's going to be turning the corner. It already is.
I think so,
towards kind-hearted, and so that's where Warren and I sort of connected, and it became personal. And one last thing, I obviously I can talk forever about this stuff, but the other thing I've learned is the more personal you make it, the more well anchored you become. Like I knew Warren. Right. I knew what he meant and where he was coming from because I talked to him about it. I can't do that with people over Zoom. I couldn't be leading teams over Zoom. Now, I might have to, right. But I would have to find a hybrid model, and I think everybody will, to make it, if you want to differentiate yourself, make it more personal. Find a way to get to know people at a deeper level. Yeah. And the more intentional you are about that, whether it's writing, in my case, writing thank you notes, or, which was good in my era, or whatever you choose to do, it's finding a way to make it more personal. And as I learned from Warren, the more time I spent with him, the more personal it became, and the more well-grounded I became. So.
You know, for a last question, I'd really love to hear what both worries and or encourages you about how companies build leaders today. I think that's the kind of insight we need both for our students, but also for the rising leaders that we work with. What's working, what's not working with how companies are developing leaders?
Well, I think they have to focus on creating high engagement cultures. It's not how a manager is developing a leader. That's part of it, but there's got to be a culture that is tough-minded on standards and kind-hearted with people, that is living and breathing. And then the managers have to help the rising leaders develop the skills to operate in that world. And they have to pull a Gandhi. They have to be the change that the enterprise is talking about. And it's not about, and what happens is we get into the short term and performance feedback, and you got to work on your time management skills. So we're going to send you to time management school. Or, your strategic thinking needs a little work. So we're going to send you to a strategic thinking program. Or, you've got to work on your empathy. You've got to work on some of those people skills. So we're going to get you a coach. We start dealing with the symptoms of the issues, but not with the root cause, which is a culture that's not adequate for leading people in a Bonnie world. And so I think we have to, and one other piece of that, the reason I wrote the Blueprint book. So we're dealing with all the skills, but their foundations are so flimsy that the skills just don't get traction. They don't know who they are. They don't know what their convictions are. As soon as they get challenged, they run the other way. They're anxious. And so what I started doing when I was a CEO at Campbell, I started teaching high potential people. I had a 2-year program where we said, we're going to help you figure out who you are, and then we're going to help you connect that to our expectations. And sadly, most people don't know who they are.
Yeah, take some work.
I didn't. I mean, I didn't. I had to lose a job, and then I was blessed to be with a real gifted outplacement guy. But most people don't have that kind of blessing in the face of a crucible moment. But these people are facing crucible moments every day, right?
Right.
And the culture needs to be helping them figure out, how are you going to sort through this? How are you doing? Let's help you get settled. And then let's work on your time management skills. But the answer is not go to time management school.
You're skipping this big step.
And last thought, all the good leaders I know are really well anchored. They know who they are. They know what their purpose is in life. They know their values. Jim Collins just publishing probably his last book. I just got it.
Good. I was going to say, I haven't seen it.
No, you wouldn't. It's not out yet. I'm going to. But he sent me a copy, and it's all about how important it is to be anchored yourself and develop your own leadership journey, which is what the Blueprint was about, which he endorsed when I wrote that book. And the Cynthia Covey book, that was it was living life in crescendo. Why your most important work is always ahead of you, but you've got to be anchored in this with who you are, so you know what your important work is.
That's right.
So you can be working on it. And so this notion of my language, if you want to get unstuck, if you want to get out of this, you got to go in, is the essence of the challenge.
Thank you, Doug. I mean, speaking of kindred spirits, I always so value being with you. And
You say
appreciate
that to all the guys. I know better. Come on, Marianne. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bearcats Mean Business. If today's episode sparked a new idea, challenged your thinking, or helped you see your path a little more clearly, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone in your network. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And remember, real-world success begins here at Lindner.